Markets with David Modell.
Welcome to Looking at the Markets with David Modell. My guest today is Mr. Max Porterfield with Calnex Mines. Now, Mr. Porterfield has over 10 years of experience in the natural resources markets and has been president and CEO of Calnex Mines since 2014. So, Mr. Porterfield, welcome to Looking at the Markets.
Thanks so much for having me.
I really appreciate it very much. I feel that Calnex Mines could be a fantastic opportunity for investors. And so I'd like to talk about not only Calnex Mines, but also just the markets and the environment in general. For example, Mr. Jeff Gundlach, the billionaire that is nicknamed the Bond God, is calling for higher rates, which are obviously indicating inflation levels are on the way up. He says his fund is now invested heavily in commodities, which rally at the end of business cycles. So, are you bullish on industrial metals prices right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm bullish on all commodity prices right now, in particular the base metal space, which we're actually focused on as a company, and have been bullish on them over the past several years. So it's nice to see the price action in the commodities kind of coming to fruition with our conviction. And also nice to see other investors, institutional investors, such as Mr. Gundlach, that are also investing in the space, because a lot of the big institutional money hasn't come into commodities overall in general. And so he's one of the few, and hopefully he's part of a bigger trend to come in terms of asset flows into the sector.
Gotcha. Now, historically, the U.S. dollar's weakness is the most important determining factor of a natural resources bull market. So in your opinion, are we in the early innings?
Yes. So I mean, resource prices, commodity prices have been depressed for a number of years. It's been we're coming out of a bear market that was very unique and prolonged, that you typically don't see in the commodity cycle. It was much longer than normal. With inflation coming along the way, as you've alluded to, that's going to be very bullish for commodity prices. You're seeing that in oil, you've seen it in copper, you've also seen it in the zinc prices, in gold as well. But I think there's also, aside from just inflation, in being an investor in the commodity space as a hedge to inflation, you need to focus on commodities that have supply-demand fundamentals that really support higher prices as well. And I think that's where you can get the biggest move, which is really how we're positioned as a company, being positioned in the zinc space. It's a very, very tight market, for example, where we've actually been in a supply deficit for a number of years. It's forecasted for a number of years going forward. And that's really led to a big move in underlying commodity price. I think there's a lot left to go, where zinc prices were below 80 cents in early 2016. They just hit a decade-long high of $1.63 earlier this week, and again, got a lot of supply-demand fundamentals behind it, because there hasn't been supply being able to meet up with demand, and really the only way to make up for that is with above-ground inventories. But those above-ground inventories have been eaten through over the past 5 years, to point now we've got less than days of supply in inventory right now. So it's at critically low levels. So any kind of inflationary environment could spark a even bigger move in the base metal space, for example, zinc.
Right. Now, all stock markets worldwide are trading at all-time highs right now. The rally has been mind-boggling. The S&P 500 is up every month for more than a year with record low volatility. The only cheap sector is commodities. Are commodities the best place for value investors right now, and how are you positioned as a company?
Yeah, so in terms of value investors, I think commodities, specifically the equities that are in the commodities business, such as Calnex, are a great place to be invested right now from a valuation standpoint. while you've had a big bull market that you just mentioned in the overall domestic equity space in the U.S. and really worldwide to a larger extent, you haven't had that in the junior miners or the any of the mining industry in general. Things haven't been priced in, and I think that's again based upon the depressed prices and overall commodity complex in general. And while you have had a nice move, for example, in zinc, you haven't seen the equities follow suit yet. And I think really what the reason for that is obviously investor sentiment, why fix something that's broken when you just investing in the overall broader market has worked out real well for you. But I think there's going to be a rebalancing and shift in portfolios and money flows into the sector, and all ships rise in a rising tide. And I think it's a great sector to be in. And I think longer term, as prices stabilize at these higher levels, I think that's when you'll see quite a significant move in the underlying equities. In terms of how Calnex is positioned, we saw as a great opportunity and really went with our conviction in the zinc space and acquired 3 zinc-rich deposits that were in Eastern Canada when zinc was trading below below 80 cents a pound. And really, assets at the bottom of the cycle can be had at pennies on the dollar to their longer-term value. So we're happy to have been able to acquire those when we did. And since then, we've been advancing our zinc-rich deposits through our exploration programs that have been ongoing, particularly in New Brunswick.
Now, if people want to get involved with Calnex mines, I do want to ask some specific questions about Calnex, but people should also do their own research before they make any investment. They should make their own decisions. What they ought to do is visit the website for one thing, and that's on your screen, and it's going to be below this YouTube video. In the description of the video, you can click on it. It's www.calnex.ca. And that's also on your screen right now. Also on your screen right now would be the ticker symbols for the stock for Calnex. And in Canada, on the TSXV, the ticker symbol is CNX. And on the OTC markets in the United States, it is CLLXF. So wanted to ask about Calnex in particular. Compared with Osisko Metals, which is your direct peer, your stock price is discounted some 80%. What will it take for the market to start noticing how cheap Calnex is?
Yeah, so Osisko Metals is a company that's also has a very large presence in the Bathurst camp of New Brunswick, where 2 of our zinc deposits that I mentioned that we acquired earlier and are advancing are located. I think the big thing for us as a company in terms of catalysts, we've just done our first pass exploration where we've been able to significantly increase the extent of the Nash Creek deposit through drilling. And while we've announced many of those drill holes, what we haven't done is really quantify those. And the way you quantify, drilling and the deposit size in the resource business is by putting out what's known as a updated resource estimate. That's where a third party takes all that drill data and puts together how big the deposit is, and it's a third party report that's done. And we're going to be putting out a resource update at the Nash Creek deposit, again, that we've been aggressively expanding since mid last year through our various drill programs. And that's going to be coming out within the next 45 days or so. And then on top of that, we're also going to be publishing a preliminary economic assessment, which is another third-party engineering report that will look at overall how the Nash Creek deposit, as well as their satellite Superjet deposit, would look, and some numbers around a mining operation in terms of a first pass. And I think by doing both of those things, it's going to unlock value for us and get a revaluation that'd be more appropriate for the assets that are now in the company. Because you got to keep in mind, again, we acquired those assets at sub 80 cent zinc at a deep discount to where those assets are trading in today's market. And by showing how much we've grown them and really kind of put economics or potential economics around them, I think that will garner additional added value for our shareholder base.
Absolutely. As an investor, I'm always looking for value. I know that my audience is always looking for value and for growth potential, which I believe Calinex certainly has. So, what is your focus in New Brunswick?
Yeah, so our focus in New Brunswick is advancing our two projects there. There's two deposits, again, that I mentioned we had acquired, the Nash Creek and Superjack. But really what's unique about them overall in a broader context is their proximity infrastructure. While these deposits are getting more and more difficult, and this is not something that's unique just to the zinc space, but really prevalent in gold, silver, any of these other kind of metals, is the difficulty of finding them and overall declining grades. So the overall percentage of a particular mineral in a deposit is decreasing, which makes it more costly to develop them and mine them, which you need higher prices to facilitate that. So with that being said, Nash Creek and Superjack are in the Bathurst district of New Brunswick, which has a long history of mining. Actually, the Brunswick number 12 mine that actually went out of production in 2013 that led to some of these supply side issues. It's such a large mine. It was at one point the largest underground zinc mine in the world. But with that, provides a tremendous amount of infrastructure. And the Nash Creek in particular is less than a mile away from a provincial highway and high voltage power line. You've got access to water. It's 25 kilometers or roughly 20 miles away from a smelting operation, rail line, and deep water port to get that product out to market. So those type of infrastructure advantage that we have is very unique that you don't typically see with a lot of these deposits that are remote and that have $1 billion capital costs. So what that does is reduce your capital cost. In addition to that, the Nash Creek deposit, as well as a portion of the Superjack deposit, is near surface, and we're looking to it being amenable to an open pit operation, which is much cheaper upfront capital costs as well as operating costs than an underground type of operation. So we're advancing those through various drilling campaigns that I mentioned. We've increased the strike length to the Nash Creek deposit by 50% since we've originally acquired it, which is a significant increase in the deposit size. And we're going to be able to quantify that in the updated resource, and then also put potential economics around that with that PEA that I mentioned we're going to be publishing in the next couple of months.
Understood. And finally, what is your exit strategy for the business?
Well, we're advancing it and becoming a developer as we move with these engineering studies at Nash Creek and Superjack. With that being said, I mean, the normal part of the cycle is you have exploration companies like Calinex explore for and begin developing these type of deposits, and then you have producers that take those out and acquire them to build into their pipeline of the project portfolio or their development pipeline for eventually mining them. So while we are advancing them, I wouldn't call it out a question that we would be a takeover candidate at some point by a mid-tier company that's currently producing that wants to add additional resources in future production to their pipeline.
That sounds great. So once again, I've been speaking with CEO and president of Calinex Mines, Mr. Max Porterfield. If you want to learn more on your own, which I certainly encourage, you want to visit that website. Click on the link below in the description of this video. It's also right there on your screen, www.calinex.ca. As an investor, you'll want to know the ticker symbols. In Canada, it is on the TSXV, it is CNX. And on the OTC markets in the United States, which means you can buy it from just about any online broker or otherwise in the United States. Most of them will let you buy these. It is CLLXF. So, Mr. Porterfield, I'm very excited about Calinex Mines, the growth potential. I believe it is a value play, a great value play right now. And I'll be watching and, watching with excitement about where the company will go and where the stock will go. So, Mr. Porterfield, thank you so much for coming to Looking at the Markets, and you're welcome back anytime, sir.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me, and I'm just as excited, if not more.